I always remember loving my father's hands. In the late 1960s, my dad was a journalist for all the local Houston papers. And he had this stacked key typewriter table, and I used to set my chin on it and watch him type. He was a furious typer. He was really fast. It was fun to watch. Some of you might remember this sound because it was an old, not electric, big piece of steel typewriter. That sound was like white noise growing up in my house. My dad also made drawings. He used charcoal and he would use his fingers to push the material around. They would turn black, shadowing a figure, filling in something. I saw his hands in wet clay. He made sculpture. There was just always a grace and a deliberateness about the way he used his hands that I was always fascinated by. He was also undiagnosed and suffering from bipolar disorder until I was 7 years old. If you don't know what that is, it's a chemical imbalance in your brain, and it can make you high sometimes and really entertaining sometimes, and it can also make you very low and depressed. And for me and our young family, it was scary. And to let you just kind of know how that played out later in life, my dad struggled with it his whole life. My two sisters didn't talk to my dad for the last 15 years of his life. I didn't talk to him for several years. And I did therapy. I mean, we all did therapy, but I specifically did this men's work, and it helped me get in touch with my emotions, and it also gave me a lot of compassion for men of his generation. And I committed after that to have breakfast with him every Sunday. And I remember one Sunday I was going to go, and I was talking to one of my sisters, and she said, "How do you do that?" And I said, "It's my service work." And she laughed, yeah. And I said, "I'm not kidding." And it really wasn't that my dad couldn't be incredibly charming and funny and smart, and all of that was true, but he was a master wordsmith, and he could hurt me like that with words. So it was never easy. This was when he was 71 years old. We were moving into his apartment building, and I was carrying this big box of photographs. Well, I didn't know they were photographs, and then it kind of started to fall apart, one of those old moving boxes. And he's right there, and I said, there were just a ton, hundreds of black and white photographs, old. I said, who are these people? He said, "That's extended family." And I said, "Really?" Obviously, we were not kind of close with our extended family. I said, "I'd love to know about these people." He said, "What do you want to know?" I passed him a photograph. "Tell me about her." He said, "This was, I don't remember the name." He said, "This was your great aunt's second cousin. She was one of the first women Presbyterian, preachers." And I was like, "Amazing. What about this one?" And he holds it up, and he said, "Well, that was your Uncle Tom. He was an amazing storyteller." And he's standing next to Pancha Villa, and that's an old Ford Model T. I'm like, wow. I said, what I'd love to do is photograph your hands in black and white. And I just immediately had this picture of doing a voiceover and then putting together a slide presentation for myself and for something for us to do. Well, he's a performer. He was all over that. He's like, "Yeah, I'd love to do that." So a few weeks went by, a month went by. We kept rescheduling. I got busy. A year went by. 2 years went by. And then I kind of forgot about it. Now he's 81. And he's diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And it really scared me. I looked up everything I could find on Alzheimer's. I found the Houston Alzheimer's Association. Really wonderful organization, by the way. They had this early onset class. And it involved putting people like my dad and other Alzheimer's patients in one room, and caregivers like me in the other room. And then afterward, we'd come back and have lunch. And it was the kind of stuff you never, ever want to have to talk about. But Alzheimer's could be really awful and really funny, too. It was not all terrible. And certainly from doing those classes, my heart opened. And I know my dad's did, and our wall started going down. And of course, I'm thinking about that photography project. I said, Dad, you want to do that photography project? He goes, yeah, I'd love to do it. I said, well, why don't we start with like 20 photographs? We'll just meet at that diner where we go. So we met there. He opens up this blue envelope, and I had a video camera. I thought it'd be easier. And he picks up one of the photographs, and he looks at it, and I see this look in his eye I've never seen before. And it's a look like I don't even know what a photograph is. I thought, I'm losing my dad, and I just lost all those other people. But I said, hey, don't worry about it. And he goes, well, no, let me try a different one. So he pulls up another one, and he looks at it, that same look. He puts his head down, and he says, I guess I'm just having a bad day. And I said, look, it's not a big deal. You want something to eat? Inside, I'm dying. So we tried several other times. He basically had just lost that ability to recall things. And so now it's Sunday, and I'm going to his house, for this obligatory Sunday breakfast. It's not obligatory anymore. It's not an obligation for anymore. I want to be with my dad now because I know time might be short. And I know there might be a day where I look at him and he looks back. And he doesn't know who I am. So we're at breakfast, and he's doing this beautiful thing that he's been doing for the last 10 years. I've been watching him do this. And it's just make a cup of coffee the way he likes it, diner coffee. But it's his hands. It's how he grabbed that giant sugar shaker and the little aluminum pitcher and pour the cream. And then he would stir 4 times, and he would tap the arm of the spoon on the lip of the cup, and that graceful hand was not as graceful. It kind of shook a little bit as he put it down, but I loved it. It was like my own little finger hand ballet. So now we're in the car and we're driving back. I'm driving him home, and I look down and I see his beautiful 82-year-old hand, and I just had this nice thought, I want to hold my dad's hand. So I'm coming up to a red light, stop the car, I look down, and I'm just full of fear. I'm like, where's this coming from? Yeah. This is my vulnerable 82-year-old father's hand. I've done all this therapy, and I've done these men's groups, and what's wrong with me? It was the longest red light. So it turns green, start driving again, and I'm turning this over in my head. I want to hold my father's hand. This is why I did therapy and men's work. And I stopped at the next red light, and I looked down, and I can't do it. And then I had just thoughts coming. I thought, how many times had my dad held my little hand, little Harwood's hand, in his big hand when I was a boy? Like probably every night, every morning, thousands of times. And then other thoughts came. Would he pull his hand away? Would he use that sharp wit and say something cruel to me? Would he hit me? Because he had hit me. So we were turning on to Heights Boulevard, and we stopped at a stop sign. And I remember looking up in the rearview mirror. There was nobody behind us. I don't know why. I remember catching eyes with this woman sitting on a bench. When I took my hand off the steering wheel, it was just a few inches to touch my dad's hand. It might as well have been a 1,000-foot bungee jump. It's the scariest thing I did in my life. And when I touched his hand, immediately, his other hand came over and covered my hand. It was like he'd been waiting for me. And it felt strangely familiar, like we had been doing it forever. For the last 2 years of my father's life, whenever we went anywhere in a car, we held hands. Thank you.